And go ahead and hide yourself, Brent, and mute yourself. Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Bryan Kramer. I am so excited to be here. Susie should be on momentarily. We're having just a little bit of a technical hiccup, but the good news is that we have our guest on with us, and I would love to introduce you all to Robbie Baxter. Robbie, how are you doing? It's been a long three-day weekend, so I'm just
I hear you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here.
We're
Really
so happy to have
excited.
you. Yeah, no, I can't believe we live so close. You're just up the coast from me.
Yeah, I know. And I think Dory Clark introduced us a while back and said we should get together.
That's right.
And I don't think it ever happened. So
that's right.
I'm glad to meet you face to face this way.
That's right. I now remember that connection. So yeah, I'm glad that we got a chance to meet here, and I am really excited to talk to you about the membership economy. That's you know, something that I'm personally interested in. I was just telling you offline. But I wanted to, before we get started here, I'm just going to send out a quick tweet to everybody, make sure that everyone has the link to watch us live. Let me do that. We are live. Get on. Okay, good. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing that I wanted to do is just introduce you. I've got a short little introduction here. Robbie Baxter has over 20 years of strategy consulting and marketing expertise in her business, Peninsula Strategies. Her clients include startups and mid-size venture-backed companies, as well as industry leaders such as Netflix, Yahoo, Oracle, and eBay, companies I believe we all have heard of. Over the past 10 years, she's advised nearly 100 organizations on growth strategy, so definitely a busy lady. A sought-after writer and keynote speaker, she's presented to alumni organizations at Stanford, Harvard, and I believe that's Santa Clara University at Haas. Is that correct?
Berkeley. Berkeley.
Oh, Berkeley. That's
Other
right.
side of the bridge, yeah.
Right. As well as chapters of Product Development and Management Association, Business Marketing Roundtable, and Women in Consulting. She's been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, E-Commerce Times, Tampa Bay Journal, and the list goes on. But the real exciting part that I'm also really looking forward to is talking about her book and her topic, the membership economy. And so I wanted to kick this off first and foremost with you, Robbie, about talking about the membership economy and having you first just define what you mean by that.
Sure. The membership economy is a massive trend that's really changing the way organizations engage with their customers or members. It's about a move from ownership to access, from the transactional to the relational, and from the anonymous to the known, to building those real relationships that you talk so much and so well about. And I first noticed it, became aware of it about 14 years ago when I was doing work for Netflix. And since that time, I've seen it across all kinds of industries, not just here in Silicon Valley, but in traditional businesses, loyalty programs, retailers, professional societies, even very small businesses. So it's something that I think is really important for entrepreneurs and execs to understand.
That is an interesting comment that you made about anonymous to known. Let's dive into that a little bit more. I know that marketing automation is the tool that helps make that happen, just because of my own research and knowledge. But is that right? Am I getting that right? That marketing automation is a big piece of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So technology advances are extending the infrastructure that enables trusted relationships. And marketing automation technology is one of those technologies that makes it possible. This is another one. You know, we're on Google Hangouts. That's another one. there's lots of technologies that are extending that infrastructure. The declining costs of storage, always-on technologies, mobile devices, all of those things allow us to have more trusted relationships across time and space.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, Matt is a big part of that.
So let's dive in a little bit into into the membership economy and how you what does a person feel like? What is the action that they take to feel like they've become a member of your community? I mean, it's not just one thing, right?
Right, absolutely. So a lot of, I love that you started with that, because so many people start on the organizational side and they say, wow, there's so much in it for the company. We get recurring revenue, we get all this data so we can get more out of the customer. And I love that you started with what's in it for the customer, what's in it for the member, and what does it feel like? Because a lot of organizations just slap the word membership on and don't change their behavior, and people can sense that. So what it should feel like is, I belong here. This organization is focused on helping me to achieve my needs, which are about, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's about mitigating risk, it's about feeling a sense of belonging and connection, it's about being held in high regard by your peers for your accomplishments and contributions, and it's ultimately about feeling like you're able to achieve your highest and best purpose. So when you feel like that about an organization, that an organization has your goals in mind, that's when you feel like you're a member, whether or not they call you one.
So once you have, how much goes into building trust through becoming membership? What kind of research have you done around trust, and where do you see that that topic helping to build that connection between the member or the active participant and the company or the person or the brand?
Oh, it's such a good question. So when I was writing my book, I delved into that topic on trust, and found that a lot of organizations don't think about it at all. They're very focused on that moment of transaction, and then what happens after that doesn't matter to them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter as much because they've got the customer. In membership economy, when relationships are paramount, trust becomes more important. And so what I've seen is organizations that focus on the long term as opposed to the short term tend to have trust more in mind. So if you think about game theory, if you and I are only going to play a game one time, it's okay if I cheat you. It's okay if I play really harshly. It's okay if I win all the marbles and you get no marbles, because I'm never going to see you again. But if we're going to play every week, like think about your tennis partner that you play every Tuesday night and go out for pizza with, you play differently. And that's really the way to think about the difference between membership and a kind of transactional anonymous relationship. Do you have to see him again next week?
Yeah. Yeah. Where does online versus offline take part? You said see them again next week, and I know you're kidding, but the physical to digital world. You're half kidding. Where is that? Where does that take place? That physical to digital world, sharing economy, the collaborative economy, and it's been called all kinds of things. Where do you see it?
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be online. It can be in real life. Like we've all had kind of membership economy experiences at our gyms, at some of us at golf clubs or tennis clubs or fitness clubs. We've seen it when we've joined fraternities and sororities. This is not a new idea. The difference is that the digital relationships that are possible now are as good as, if not in some cases, I'm going to argue better than face-to-face. For example, my experience on Facebook recently, people that I've known for 20 years, so let's say some black friends that I have, they don't talk to me directly about how they feel about like Beyonce's performance last week or what it feels like to be a Black entrepreneur, things like that. But seeing what they post on Facebook actually allows me to develop a deeper relationship with them because it kind of changes the environment for the communication. So digital can extend and expand the kinds of relationships. It can also substitute when the physical is not possible.
Interesting. So one of the things that I'm curious about is the it's probably called many different things. I'm curious how you define it. Is the relationship funnel or the trust funnel, the process that you go through to build towards a purchase or build towards an action, a measurable action. How do you see that? How do you define it, and what do you consult your clients and your friends on?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say too many organizations have a funnel that looks like a margarita glass. So wide, really wide on the top, and then it goes really narrow. And so they're like, well, lots of people know who we are, but nobody's actually transacting with us. And so I advise them that you want your glass to look more like a pint glass. And we're coming off a long weekend, so those are the metaphors that are front of mind for me. But if you think about a pint glass, it's a gradual. It's more like a chute with more gradual sides. And the reason is that you're focusing more on the people that are going to get the most value from you, as opposed to saying, let's get everybody in the funnel, and then we'll see if anybody actually converts and becomes a customer. The other thing that is really important and that I think about in that funnel is I think the funnel is looking more like an hourglass. And so if you think about a funnel as being an inverted triangle, and an hourglass is kind of like two of those, that narrowest point is the point of transaction. But the real value comes when you can build that long-lasting relationship, when you get the recurring revenue, when your existing customers or members make referrals and bring in new customers, and when they create value inside the funnel for the other members. That's where the real value comes from, and I think organizations should focus more on what happens after the transaction than that top half of the funnel. Most organizations spend way too much time thinking about awareness and not enough time thinking about retention.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it costs so much more to get a new client versus keeping an existing one. What is it that when you first connect with somebody, and I've been doing a lot of research on this, and this is why I've been looking forward to talking with you so much, because when you first connect with somebody, there, in my opinion, there's two different, or maybe more, but there's two very clear approaches. One is, and it's kind of like dating. It's like you don't ask them out in the first 5 minutes. You got to get to know them first.
Right.
And I see so many emails or requests, like somebody who reaches out to me and says, "Hey, will you be my friend on Facebook?" Well, first of all, let's get to know each other. Like, but I have no clue who you are. So how are we going to be friends? How are we gonna do this? And I think the same thing goes for the membership economy. Like, how do we get to know each other first? Is it a question? Is it a quiz? Is it something that helps us to understand each other, and then we can take it to maybe our first date? Am I off? What's your thought?
No, I totally agree with you, and I think that I want to point out that there's a challenge with this, with your Facebook example that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is that there aren't social norms established yet for what's appropriate behavior on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. So while some people use Twitter to, let's say, put out self-centered announcements, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I won this, I won that. Other people are sending out pictures of things that they think are funny, and other people are sending out rants about things they're frustrated with. Same thing on Facebook. Some people say with LinkedIn, I'm going to link in with every single person that wants to link in with me, and other people say LinkedIn is how I keep track of my true network of people that I know and I'm willing to do a favor for.
Yeah.
So that's a whole issue, I think, and hopefully time will resolve that. But the other thing that you bring up is this question of how do you build a relationship with somebody? And there's the piece that is before the transaction, so and then there's the piece after. And I'm a big proponent of freemium models. I think that there's so many ways to provide real value to people for free forever. That's the definition, right? It's for free and it's forever. It's not a free trial. It's not something that doesn't have value. It's something that has value for free forever. And having that as a piece of your model, saying, for the people that haven't committed to me yet, that I hope someday are willing to enter into a financial transaction, what can I do for them for free forever? It's that simple. And I know you do a lot of that, like these talks, for example. I mean, that's creating value for people, whether or not they choose to ever pay you.
Someone who, and we've got Susie here, so that's exciting.
Hi, Susie.
Although she may be in, well, she was here. So one of the interesting things was that I sent out an email last week. I rarely ask for help. Rarely. And I send out a lot of, I feel like I give a lot of free value. Like, we do these HH chats, and we do, I have a new podcast, and I do, blogging and like all kinds of things, and I don't really request anything for it. And so I sent out an email last week saying, hey, would you mind leaving a review for my new podcast? It's the first time in a long time I really asked for something. I got an email back saying, from one person who said, I'll give you a review if you give me a review. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know if I agree with this give to get.
I totally don't agree.
It just kind of.
I'm so with you.
It well with me, and I was like, oh. And I had a hard time responding back. I didn't even know what to say.
Yeah. So here's what I've said to people. I totally get that, and I've had that happen several times. And what I say to them is, only give me a review if you want to. And if you'd like me to consider giving an honest review of what you do, please let me know, and I'd be glad to consider it. But I want the reviews to be authentic and honest, and I don't sell my reviews.
Right.
And to people I know well, I say to them, this almost feels unethical to me that you're asking me this.
Yeah.
I would be really careful. I mean, I wouldn't say this to a stranger who asked me.
Yeah.
I try to be very polite and nice, but to somebody, in one case, it was somebody that I mentor, and I asked, I said, my book came out. She said, your book's so great. I said, great. If you could cut and paste what you just said and put it on Amazon, that would mean so much. And she said, great. Can you do the same for, if you do the same for me, I'd be glad to. And I said to her, that, of course I want to support you, but the way you framed that feels really icky/unethical.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not how relationships
it's funny because I've never turned, I don't think, as long as I know you, like if we've dated a little bit, then I've always been helpful. I'll help just about anyone. But there's that scenario. And so I'm always curious about the membership economy and the process that we're talking about here and how relationships are built. And now maybe we could just kind of transition just a little bit into the how you turn then into a digital relationship into a more meaningful relationship. How do you create that? What's your thoughts on how to create a meaningful relationship from you haven't dated yet? How do you create the meaningful part?
So I always start with, what is your member's mission? So if your goal ultimately is to have people join let's say the H2H revolution, right? You say, well, what is the mission? What am I promising to these people? Well, in my case, I'm promising people that I'm going to help them uncover ways to build relationships with their members that create more value for them and to be compensated for it. So that's the mission. And then I go backwards and say, what can I do for people right now? What can I do right now? And sometimes people say there's issues with what do you charge for and what do you do for free. And my experience has always been that the more you do for free, the more people want the kind of intimate one-on-one. So anything that I can leverage, for the most part, I tend to, I'm always looking for things that I can give away. And I'm always, probably, if somebody, I even have in the back of my book, I have my email address. So for people that finish the book and for people that are listening to this, my email address is there. You can send me an email and ask me for help, and I will just respond.
Oh, wow.
So people send me, hi, I'm a pharmacist in the Philippines, and I'm building community around my patients. What do you advise? Like, I'll try to help them. And
Oh, that's great.
with some percentage of them, they come back and say, you know what, I want to go deeper.
Yeah.
And I want you to coach me, or I want to work with you with my company and help with strategy. But you have to start from the spirit of, life's a long time. Life's a long time.
Yeah, it's interesting, huh? I love that. That's so H right there. Let's get in a little bit into when it's time and it's okay to ask for a sale. We've talked a lot about the relationship and how much time and effort it takes to build your funnel, to build your relationship, to build these different components. When is the sale okay to ask? When is it okay to ask for the sale?
Okay, so first of all, you have to feel like the sale is going to do them a huge favor, and people say that all the time. But if you don't believe that, okay, let's imagine you're a heart surgeon, and this person says that they're having trouble breathing. You at some point are going to say, you know what, I actually have a surgery that can make those problems go away and make you feel good, right? Do you say, oh my God, this guy's always trying to sell me something. Every time I go into the doctor's office, he's trying to get a buck. No.
Yeah.
You say, because you trust him. So once you have trust, you can offer things that are going to help the other person. And most people understand that they're going to have to pay something in return for that value. So that's kind of point one. And then I think point two is that in the membership economy, when you have all these people that are already in your community, whether or not they're paying, in many cases, they're actually doing the asking for the sale for you. So they're saying, you know what, you need to join this mastermind group, or you know what, you need to hire her because she helped us figure out exactly what we needed to do. And so part of it is harnessing the power of your super users, these people that really understand the value you provide, and they become advocates, and they also become sources of content for your community. And that makes it easier because, again, you don't have to actually ask for the sale. You just make it possible for them to ask for the sale.
Yeah, it's you've earned it and you're providing value at the same time. I like that. What is it's hard to go from value and free to asking for a sale and then back to value and free without and you don't want to demean the value along the way of what you're giving. How do you weave in between or offer up different levels of your product or service, both at the freemium level and at the paid level?
So people should always know that there's stuff that they can buy. I don't think there's any shame in that. So if you said, let's say you have a lot of organizations have a tiered membership model. So there's a free version, and then there's a, bronze, silver, gold, or if you're in the world of my daughter's dance organization, first place, top first, and elite top first. So if you're in first place, you're really in last place. But there's always a way to help people understand that they can get more value. And that's what it is. And you have to be sure that the lowest level still provides real value. And periodically, like I think of it as this. If you say, help me get dinner every night, and I say, okay, I can get you dinner every night, and it can be hamburger, right? It solves a problem. You're getting dinner every night. But every once in a while, I can give you a taste of filet mignon and say, some people like filet mignon for dinner. And they're like, oh, like some people are going to say, you know what, delicious, but I can't afford it. And some people are going to say, I don't even like the way it tastes, even if it is more expensive. I'd prefer a burger. And some people are going to say, wow, I think I might like to have filet mignon. I think that is so worthwhile. So that's how you want to think about your levels. And so you let them know, like, there's something better. Many people prefer to have one-to-one access to me as opposed to just seeing me on my show and tweeting questions in. So, some people would like an hour of Bryan's time, right? And that is like filet mignon. Like, it's a little more expensive, but, and you can get plenty of value through your free stuff, but it's for many people, it's a better experience.
Of course, your example just made me really hungry, but I, yeah, I agree. I think that's right, and you know, time is valuable, and so I love what you're pointing at there. You also talk about in your book about self-generating revenue streams. What do you mean by that?
Self-generating revenue streams.
So create a self-generating revenue stream is one of the areas here on in the book that you're talking about, and and I wonder if it's about automation or is it about creating your brand, or what are your thoughts there?
So what I'm thinking about is referrals and recurring revenue, those two things. And you know, you and I have talked a little bit now about this, you know, the technologies that support it. And one of the 7 tenets that I have is that anyone who's thinking about membership should speak the language of technology. They should be out there talking to vendors, learning what's available, researching different tools, asking peers what they're using. But I never think that that's core. That should not be driving your business. What I'm talking about here with self-generating revenue stream is, number one, it's the idea of a forever transaction, which is that somebody says, I want to be part of this community, or I want to be accessing this service for as long as I need it. So that might be LinkedIn, right? I join LinkedIn, and as long as I'm a recruiter, I'm going to depend on LinkedIn as my paid service for finding people, right? So then LinkedIn doesn't have to worry about selling to me anymore. They're off the hamster wheel, right? I'm going to, as long as I'm a recruiter, as long as LinkedIn continues to focus on helping me achieve my mission, which is finding the right people for the right roles, I'm going to stay, and I'm going to pay my $50 or my $150 every month. So that, you know, and then the second piece is to incorporate, you know, the power of referrals, viral, and network effect into your business model. And I think it can be as simple as an organization saying, how can we incorporate those? And then you might just, you know, sometimes people just don't even think about that. But once you start thinking about it, all of these tactics come to mind. And the organizations that layer those things in are going to build more of a self-generating stream. And it's eventually going to go to the point where you're spending no money at the top of the funnel, because the system, your ecosystem does it for you. It's like it's like a perpetual motion machine. And that's what I think we should be striving for, because advertising should be, to me, it should be like a little kindling, but the fire's going, right? The fire's going. People know about you. They know what value you provide. You might not need to spend any more money on advertising anymore, right? Spend that money improving your offering and strengthening the ways that people can connect with each other and with you, and the advertising isn't needed anymore.
Right. Yeah. Real quick before we move on with a couple questions, I wanted to make sure that everybody out there is asking questions, because now that we have my wonderful co-host is on and with us, and we can hear her and she can hear us, and technology has made her a member of this little community. See how I played it there. I would love to make sure that everyone out there is asking questions of Robbie, because this is your chance to have Susie in just a few moments, when I pass the baton over, to ask her questions. So she's going to be taking your questions and asking those of Robbie. So please tweet hashtag H2HChat with your questions, and we'll make sure that they get asked one way or another. We've got some great people on asking and talking about a lot of different things. Great community. See that?
Hey.
And so we're really excited to be asking those questions here today, and for having you on. Now, we've been talking kind of high level here, and I want to get now down in the trenches on a couple things that you look at, again, in the trenches, that helps people to actually build membership. What are a couple things that you look at all the time, every time you're looking at whether it's a funnel or a membership community or a community, and you know that you want to build either super users, or you want to build people into subscribing, or you want to build a freemium model? What is it that you look at first that really helps you to build that community?
Okay, so the first thing I always look at with like if I'm working with an organization is do they understand what drives a forever transaction? So not their own mission, but the mission of their customers or members. So what is the reason that somebody would engage the first time, and what is the hope that they have that you're going to deliver on for the rest of their lives, right? So in a dating organization, it's I'm going to find you your true love, right? So there's a very finite period of time. In fact, LinkedIn, those founders had, what's it called, SocialNet before they had LinkedIn. That was their other company. And the problem with that was that when you deliver on a forever transaction, that forever transaction ideally only lasts about 6 months, right? Whereas if the forever transaction has helped me be successful in my career, that's a 50-year or a 70-year kind of relationship. So that's the first thing. And then what I would say is you want to start at the bottom of the funnel and work your way backwards. So that's the next thing that I would do. So do you have the services, products, and experiences that if somebody were the right person, somebody in your target audience, were convinced to join with you, that they would get that lifetime experience, that they would say, yeah, this is exactly what I need and I have no reason to ever leave. And if the answer to that is no, then go back and spend more money on your product. Like don't bother with marketing, don't bother with awareness building, don't bother with lead gen or sales or anything else. And then slowly work your way back up to the top. Yeah. So then the third thing, should I keep going or?
Yeah, please. No, this is great.
The third thing is onboarding. So once somebody transacts with you and they're now part of your community, whether paid or not, but they've sort of made a commitment to you. They've raised their hand and said, I think you provide value for me. I'm interested in learning more. You want to think about what's the onboarding experience. So, you want to remove all friction to them getting value, and you want to point out how they're going to get value. So, one example, there's a group called Women on Fire, and when you join Women on Fire, the first thing you get is you get an email with a little video in it from the host or the entrepreneur, and she says, "Hi, it's Debbie. I'm so glad you're part of our community. Let me walk you through some ways that you can get value." And immediately somebody reaches out and, the other people in the community, she connects you and introduces you to people on her Facebook page. And then you get stuff in the mail that helps you understand. So you feel like in those first 30 days, you're getting a lot of personal attention to help you be successful.
I love that.
It's curated and design. It's a designed experience.
Yeah, it's the personal attention that makes the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question before I pass the baton over here to Susie. I feel like we've been dancing around it, but I'm just going to call it straight out and say that I feel like that the biggest value, the opt-in, the ultimate opt-in, is an email address.
Yeah.
It's not a follower. It's follower to email address. Like we are talking about an absolute email, and which makes me think that, and I've believed this, but out of this conversation, it's confirming maybe that email is still king. Am I? Well, what do you think about that?
Well, for a business model, the ultimate opt-in is a credit card.
Because
that is saying I trust you with my money, and that's even a higher level trust than email, which is I trust you with my time and my focus. But I agree with you. I think that email is saying, that's where I do business. I don't do business on Twitter. I do, the important things that I do, the important communications that I have are on email. And so, that's where they're really raising their hand and they're saying, I want a more thoughtful relationship, a more known relationship with you. And, the metaphor of raising your hand, I think, is a useful one where somebody's saying, yes, call on me, I'm interested. But at the same time, it's not necessarily permission to sell so much as it is permission to get to know each other.
Yeah. Okay. Susie, before I pass the baton, I have one more question for her. You just got my head going here. So give us just maybe a tip or two on how you map it out. how do you map a relationship or a funnel or an unknown to known relationship? And what you're talking about, providing value, is not something you do over one piece of communication. This has to be a little more, or even a lot more sophisticated than that. So how do you address that? I mean, obviously you can't do that in just one comment here on HTA Chat, but maybe there's a path that you could take. Maybe, whether it's, I'm sure, go hire you and you'll help them. But what's the short path to that?
Yeah. So conceptually, yes, absolutely. Hire me, and I can work with you one-on-one, or even just and frankly, send a note to Bryan or Susie, and I'll try to follow up in the next week if there's kind of specific examples that we can do, if that's useful. But I would say there's the onboarding piece, which is that you want to go to your super users, the people who are getting the most value from your community and also contributing the most value back to the community, which doesn't mean that they're necessarily the heaviest users. It just means they're the ones that are getting the most out of what you're doing, and they're the most engaged in helping others. And you want to say, okay, what did they experience that got them to this point, and then work your way backwards. So I don't know if you've had Michael Wu on your show, or if you're familiar with his work. He's chief scientist. He's the chief scientist at Lithium, which is the community platform.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of science work, like a lot of deep science work, looking at relationships, online relationships. And one of the things that he talks about is working backwards and saying, okay, your best members, what did they do? Where did they come from? What did they do when they signed up? Did they give you an email? Did they sign up? What did they receive first? Where did they go first in your community? What value did they get? An interesting example, one of my clients, who's a B2B software company, what they learned, we did this exercise, and what they learned was that their best customers are the most difficult to onboard. So because those people are saying, this is going to be part of my behavior. Your product is going to become part of my new normal. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to kick everything. I'm going to kick at the tires. I'm going to ask hard questions. I'm going to push back. I'm going to tell you it's not good enough. I'm going to call you every day because this is important to me. Mm-hmm. And once they're happy, they're fully engaged because they've totally committed. So understanding who are the people that are going to bring you the most long-term value, and working backwards to attract and delight those people the most is a really good strategy.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, good. All right, so I've used my time up like a lot, and now I
You've gone overboard
as much as I don't. But Susie's going to take it over here, and she's going to she's got plenty of questions, including her own, because she is a community fanatic and strategic awesomeness person. So that's my best way of putting it. So anyway, Susie, she's all yours. I'm going to jump in when I can, but otherwise I'll be on the Twitter community, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay. So that's my actual job title on my business card, is
super
community
awesome.
Awesomeness, super awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Well, this is great.
I'm gonna go make that your card.
There you go. I need that on my desk. So this has been awesome, and I'm so happy that I was able to get on so that I can throw some of these questions at you in person. Gotta love technology. So we've had some great responses here. The first one I just want to jump into is talking about the freemium model of the economy. So I have a great question from our buddy J.S. Gilbert. Thanks so much for joining us every week, J.S. You always have the best questions. Total shout out. So he says, how do you navigate the expectation from the freemium-based businesses that then evolves that now everything should be free, or things aren't free enough?
Yeah, it's such a good question, J.S. The dark side of membership is that when you bring people in as members and they expect that you're going to be having a relationship for a long time, they actually feel like, things are never going to change. Things should never change, or you should ask permission before you change. So it is very hard to charge somebody for something that they've been getting for free. So that's just something to think about when you launch a freemium model. So you have to assume that you're never going to be able to charge for whatever it is that you're giving away, at least to the people who get it at first. So here's some things you can do. Number one, you can, as you move up, so one thing you can do is grandfather in for free the people that came first. So the concept of foundational members can be really useful, where you say, you know what, people who are in this community in 2016, you're free for life, or you're free for as long as you participate on a regular basis, or whatever criteria you have. But anybody that joined starting January 1st, 2017 has to pay. Another way of doing it is that even from the moment you start, you're thinking, okay, there's more value I can provide as I have more members, and I'm going to launch a premium option. So everybody getting whatever they got for free will always get it for free. So like, look at LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. I still get all this stuff. In fact, they keep adding stuff that I can get for free. Yeah. But they've layered in paid offerings for recruiters, for salespeople, for job seekers. So they're making money, but they didn't really touch the freemium thing. And I think that's what, the place where people run into trouble is when they think, I'm going to give this away for a while, and then when people are really have built their behaviors around it, then I'm going to charge them once they're hooked, which is kind of a drug dealer model.
Yep.
And, it's very hard, for a sober person to accept it, right? They feel like they're being tricked.
Yep, I've dealt with that with analytics companies, and it kills me every time. Like, what's going on here? So follow-up from Nancy Rubin. Nancy, I'm so happy to see you on the Twitter stream today. So she says, so applying this to, your personal branding. So as a consultant,
yeah.
How do you deal with the expectation that the more you do for free, the more people expect free stuff? You touched on this a little bit, but how does that work? What tips would you have?
Yeah, so membership economy applied to professional services, to consulting. The way you want to think about it is you want to put out as much, I don't want to call it catnip, but as many opportunities for people to get value as you can. So, I have my book, I have blog posts, I have guest blogs, I do webinar, lots of things that I do for free. But for people that want to work directly with me, that's kind of where I cut off the charging. And I think most people understand it. What I found is that there are some people who are really happy with the book, and they say, for $15 or whatever Amazon's charging these days, I got so much value, and now I can go off and do my thing. And other people say, I got to chapter 3 and I realized I just want her in the room. And often that's bigger organizations. Sometimes that's entrepreneurs that are kind of thinking long term and say, I want to get the best value the most quickly way possible. But that's a way to think about it. And you want to have, my mentor Alan Weiss talks about an accelerant curve that kind of moves people through the relationship with a consultant. And at one end are things where you're unknown to them, and they're just getting to know you and build trust, right? That might be articles or books, and then you might have webinars, and then you might have a $10 product like a book, and then you might have a $100 product like a webinar. And then if they go through that, they might get to the point where they say, you know what, now I want to work with you, or now I want to come to one of your live events. Or some people might say, I read an article and I jumped right to, the live event or the ongoing relationship. But you want to have lots of offerings all the way through, and say to people who don't want to pay, you don't have to pay. There's lots and lots of free stuff out there, and enjoy. But some people prefer the filet mignon.
Yeah. So this is a personal question from me. What's the role of research? How do you advise people when it comes to research when they're first approaching their community?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I don't think anyone's ever asked me. So I'm so glad you asked.
I'm the data geek, the research geek.
You're super cool. So here's the thing. You deserve that title of super awesomeness. So here's the thing. Like, if you look at Netflix, okay, so Netflix was one of the very first membership economy organizations I worked with. And one of the things that I loved about them is that they were total data geeks. And they were getting all this information, not just attitudinal or demographic, but behavioral, right? So you can add, like when you're starting out, surveys are great. Demographics are great. Those are really helpful ways to start focusing in on who these people are and what they want. But once you have a community, see what they're doing. Put stuff out there and let them try. And the way that I recommend to organizations, this is probably like preaching to the choir / duh to you, but have a hypothesis first. I mean, people all the time say, let's just do some research. Let's look at their behavior. And you look at it, and unless you're a really, really sophisticated analyst, it's going to be really hard to see useful patterns if you don't know what you're hoping to find. On the other hand, if you said, we have a hypothesis that if we had more content like this, if we did more video content, that we would get more millennials, let's just say. You say, okay, great. We're going to look at how many people are looking at our text-based stuff and how old they are. And now we're going to look at some video stuff and see if the millennials participate at a greater rate, right? So it's hypothesis testing. So that's really what I would recommend. The other thing with data, so you have hypothesis testing data, and then you have benchmarking data. So things that are important to you, you want to check periodically and use the same metric over time. Yeah.
I really like how you just separated that out, actually. I'm definitely going to use that dichotomy in the future of data.
Okay.
So I have a really, thank you for that answer. It's awesome. So I have a great question from Christy. Once again, love you, Christy, one of our H2H chat community members. So she says, how do you build a forever transaction when clients only need your services, say, once every 4 to 6 years?
Yeah, okay. So the problem with that, okay, when I started thinking about this book, I was like, okay, who's not going to be part of the membership economy? What organizations are not going to find this relevant, right? Because of course, you want. I always say to people when I help them brand themselves, like, you want us to, part of your branding is to say who this isn't for, right? And so I said, okay, my first thought was, okay, what about one-time transactions, right? So wedding dresses and coffins, right? People that sell those things probably aren't going to be part of the membership economy. But then I thought about it, and I thought, no, actually, there is a period of time where you have a mission and you really need a lot of help, right? Focusing on their mission, not yours. So my mission is maybe making beautiful wedding dresses. Your mission is having a great wedding. And it might even be having a great wedding and a great marriage, right? And so when you look at that, you say, wow, there's a lot more I can do for this person. And even just simply bringing together all the brides in a community is going to create a lot of value. And if I bring together a lot of brides, and then I bring in experts on lots of topics besides wedding dresses, which I'm an expert on, more value. So it's focusing on the mission as opposed to the product. So that's kind of the first thing that I would say. So I don't know what her business is, but that would be, so instead of thinking about wedding dresses, think about happy marriage. Instead of thinking about analytics software, thinking about making the, like SurveyMonkey's tagline now is making better decisions, right? They're not like we would all say, oh, they're an online survey company. They would say, no, we're a decision-making company. We help people make better decisions. And you can see how that expands what you can do and what you can offer and lengthens the duration that somebody might find you relevant.
That's, that makes sense. So I have an awesome question from Patricia. Thank you so much for joining us today, Patricia. Always wonderful to see your smiling face in my feed. So she says, should providing free be for promotion and building a base of support, and that then gets used to transition to a paid-for business? And we kind of touched on this a little bit a few minutes ago. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there's a difference. I want to make a difference between a free trial and a freemium model. So a free trial is giving somebody a taste of the best that you've got. So that, and your hope is that they'll say, oh, I didn't understand what you were saying before, but now that I've tasted it, I get it, and I want to have this. So it's about understanding and exposure. Freemium serves a different role in a business model. It can certainly serve as a point of tasting, but you run the risk of that hamburger versus filet. Like, I've tasted the hamburger. Just because McDonald's makes hamburgers does not lead me to believe that I would buy their steak, right? Because I'm like, yeah, I know they have good hamburgers, but that doesn't make me want your steak. Whereas tasting their steak might make me say, yeah, that's delicious. So you run that risk if you use your freemium model as a source of lead generation. But it can work. It's usually around volume. Like if you have a business where people might use many people use light volume, and you want the few heavy users to pay you, it can work. But in most cases, a free trial is probably better than freemium for giving people a taste. And a lot of people make that mistake, and that's where you say, I can't get them to pay me now, because you're giving away all the value they need.
Yeah.
I don't need to pay LinkedIn. I get so much value from them, but I would if I had to, but there's no need to, because I get everything I need. I'm not a recruiter. I'm not in sales. I'm not looking for a job.
Yep.
So, those are the things to think about with freemium. And, the other benefits of freemium are networked effect. Like, what good is it to be on LinkedIn if you're the only one? Mm-hmm. And also serving as a channel for other customers. So SurveyMonkey does this really well. You Send It, which is now called Hightail, does this well, where I may not ever spend money on the paid offering, but I touch a lot of people who might. So I become your marketing channel. So that's how it would work. But if you're just trying to give people exposure to what you offer, I would say to consider a free trial.
And I love it. I was gonna, with LinkedIn too, they're benefiting in that you've probably used them as an example at least 5 times in this conversation, right? Yeah. And I'm sure it sounds like it's, it's a great example. It's a great model. And so they're hearing it over and over again.
Yeah. And I have dozens of examples, but LinkedIn and Netflix are my favorites, but we could talk publishing, we could talk nonprofits, professional societies.
Let's go into, actually, I was going to ask so you've mentioned SurveyMonkey, which would have come to my mind immediately. But what brands, let's go into publishing, nonprofits, I would love that. I know we have a great variety of audience.
Okay. So here's a couple of examples in publishing, or in content, right? You've got NPR. NPR is explicitly a membership organization. And their mantra around their organization is beloved. They want to be beloved by their members. They want people to say, I love NPR. They have such good content. They have such good shows. I feel like they're my friends. That is what they're going for. And they rely on donations, right? I mean, they have government funding and donations. So that's kind of at one end of the spectrum. And there's things that I think that they could be doing that they're not doing, but that's a great start. On the paid side, Crain's Chicago, like the business journal.
Yeah.
They recently they wanted to attract more millennials. They have a lot of very senior people that are very loyal and very engaged, and they have a very strong community among the leadership of the city. But they said, we need more young people. So they actually had a program where CEOs, and especially the CEOs that are already part of their community, can actually invite or recommend, nominate their high potential leaders in their organizations. And if they're accepted into the program and they pay for that program, they get this really incredible leadership program that is completely customized for Chicago. So there's lots of leadership programs. Stanford out here has programs that you can pay for, and most universities have programs, lots of paid organizations have programs, but what makes theirs unique is that they really know Chicago business. And what it does is it allows millennials to be supported by the baby boomers, which is really, really important. So baby boomers should be giving back at this point in their careers, and they generally want to if they're asked. And the millennials want input, advice, help, support. So it creates this kind of virtuous cycle where the CEOs are bringing in these new people who are paying Crain's. Those people become loyal, to Crain's, plus they learn all these great skills, so they make their CEOs happy. So so it's like this virtuous cycle where everybody's working together. And then there's this long-term membership, and they subscribe to the magazine or the newspaper, and they go to the events, and they, follow the leadership. They always do, the top 10 people or the top 100 people in business and stuff.
Right.
Those are a couple of examples.
Yeah. So that is definitely taking it beyond your initial offering, right? Going from a publication to creating this world.
Right. Well, they're not about their printed product. They're about helping people have successful businesses in Chicago, right?
So it sounds like a big key to this, correct me if I'm wrong, is for a brand to really think through what, and perhaps re-examine what their offering actually is.
Yes, and it's usually, it shouldn't be your product. Like, that's the thing. And, you know, here in Silicon Valley, you know, the product is king, right? Like the product manager, the product marketing manager, the engineers, it's all about the product. And I think it should be all about the customer, right? And you could change their title and make them customer marketing managers or member marketing managers or just member managers, and have them be at the center, the hub, and say, okay, what do our members need? And then go tell the product people, you know, we don't need print anymore. We need more events. We need community. We need digital. We need an app. We need something that I haven't thought of yet, or that the world hasn't thought of yet. But you want to keep following the mission. It's a much truer North Star, your customer's mission, than your product or your technology or your book or your magazine or any other kind of product.
For those of you who so last week we had Bryan Solis joining us on H2H Chat, and this I think I had imagined the way that this would dovetail together with his new project on customer experience. So last question, I always love to throw kind of a, you know, okay, so now what question. Yeah. So moving beyond, say, you know, the entrepreneurs, people who have control of their community strategy, for someone who's working at an organization, how do they pitch this to their superiors? What type of value are they going to be able to demonstrate, especially early on with the relationship building portion?
Okay. The thing that's most important, most executives understand the value of recurring revenue, and they understand the metric of lifetime customer value. Those are the one, you know, lifetime customer value is really, you know, when you put dollars against this, that's what the benefit is to the organization. And so if I were somebody that was proposing, like, let's think long term, let's focus less on the transaction and like introduce a customer success team, or let's, you know, invest more in post-sale relationship building, that's the number that I would want to use as my metric. And the other thing that I would say, and I know this is controversial, but if you work for a company that does not believe in long-term relationships, go work somewhere else. It's too hard to convince somebody that says, I'm all about the short-term money, hiding the cancel button, and you know, getting a fast buck. It's just not going to be a healthy, happy place to work. Yep. So think about where you can go. Yeah.
All right, thanks so much. This has been an education, and I know I probably got through about 50%, 60% of the questions on our feed. So if in the next 24 hours you want to check it out, it's hashtag H2H and our community is absolutely digging everything that you're saying. So,
I'm so glad. I'll try to answer them. Thanks.
So cool. Well, Robbie, thank you so much for being here today. Can you give everybody a sense, although you'll be surprised, I think, or excited, I should say, to see how many people are giving your books away to customers and clients already. I've been following
so nice to hear.
Paul was saying he has these questions he's dealing with one of his clients. He's going to give them your book. So, but for those of the community that don't have access to where to find it or where to find you, can you let everybody know?
Yeah. So the book is available anywhere that you buy books. It's on Amazon. It's in Kindle and hardcover. It's on BNN. It's IndieBound if you want to support your local bookstores. Independent bookstores are awesome. And you can reach me at membershipeconomy.com or peninsulastrategies.com. Robbie Baxter on Twitter, which I know Susie's put all over the place, which is awesome. Or you can email me, rbaxter@peninsulastrategies.com, and anything that I hear from H2H Chat, I'll feed it back to Susie and Bryan, and they can put it on the site or wherever is most useful for your people.
Good, awesome. Good. And we will have this replay up in the next 24 hours for those of you who would like to review this once again or send this out. Definitely would love to make sure that this gets into everyone's hands, because the community, as I mentioned in my tweet, I think is everything. I mean, it is what every company is made up of, and I'm fully invested in this strategy. I know Susie is as well, and obviously our guest, Robbie. So thanks once again, Robbie, for being here and for sharing your thoughts over the last hour. As Susie mentioned, there's tons and tons of tweets, so feel free to jump back on Twitter afterwards and answer a few if you have time.
Absolutely.
And great, and we will talk to you soon. Everyone out there, thank you again for being with us here today for another H2H chat on a Tuesday. We'll be back on Monday next week. Due to the long weekend, we are here on Tuesday, but we'll see you next Monday, same time, noon Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be announcing the guest within the next 24 hours. So stay tuned for that, and we will talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody. Make it a great week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.